Hello? Thank you very much. Please resume your seats. Thank you. The chairperson, President of the Nigerian Bar Association, the Honorable Attorney General, members of the Nigerian Bar here present, and because of the huge galaxy of distinguished citizens here, let me say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me clear a few things first. One, about my Nigerian antecedents. My stepmother is Nigerian, who raised me, and she comes from Kwara State. And so, what Kayode was explaining was that at a point in time when there had been a coup in Ghana, my father lived in exile here in Nigeria, and I had to come and stay with my stepmother for many years in Offa, so I know Offa quite well. And I consider that my hometown here in Nigeria. And the Olofa of Offa was very gracious to grant me a chieftaincy title, and so of Offa Kingdom. And he told a story about our intervention in Gambia when there had been an election, and we had a few issues getting the then head of state, Yahya Jammeh, to accept the results of the election. There was a funny incident. We had gone to intervene with Salif Johnson, Macky Sall, President Jonathan was part of it at the time, and Ibn Chambers. And we met the president, and we opposition leader who had won the election, and he talked about how he had been placed under house arrest. And so when we met the president, we tried to convince him to release him from national community. If anything touches the skin of this man, you say, I'm protecting him for his own safety. And I said, but Mr. President, I thought that any danger to him will come from outside his house, not from inside. He says, yes, why? I said, but the guns that are protecting him are pointing at the house instead of away from the house. And happily, eventually, we got democracy reinstated in the Gambia. Let me warn you too, there's no quotation from Christopher Sapara Williams in this speech. I heard so many quotes from him. He must have been such a great legal luminary. It is with profound gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility that I stand before you today as a special guest at this annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association. Your invitation to address this distinguished gathering is not just an honor for me, but a recognition of the crucial role the legal profession plays in shaping the future of our beloved continent. Your invitation is also historic. In my nearly 30 years of public service, this is the first time I've been invited to a bar conference. I was genuinely surprised when I received your invitation. Thank you, Nigerian Bar Association. I was genuinely surprised when I received your invitation, as I had conferences were exclusive events for only members of the legal profession. I thoroughly enjoyed Speaker Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, a distinguished daughter of Africa, truly did justice to us to speak for a few minutes on the topic, the future of Africa, security, economic, and political challenges. And as a student of history, I like to begin my lecture with some historical context. Struggle for independence in Africa. Soldiers returning from war, to do with them, and African students who had become radicalized became catalysts for the independent movements, particularly in my country, Ghana. By 1957, Ghana emerged as the first country south of the Sahara to gain independence for several other African countries, including Nigeria, to follow suit. Emerging from colonial rule was an exhilarating experience, and it was a hopeful time for Africans who look forward to a future of building great nations by autocratic rule. Human rights were routinely violated. Expression and an independent media were aspirations that seemed reserved for future democracies and oppressive military regimes. The few attempts to return to civilian rule were short-lived, and the military always quickly returned to power. The 1990s signaled a new dawn for Africa. One by one, African countries began returning to constitutional democracy. It was widely believed that democracy would not only protect the rights and freedoms of the people, but it would also unleash their creative potential to build prosperous lives. Once again, there was hope. At one point, 6 of the world's fastest growing economies in a prosperous future for the continent. Fast forward more than, and Africa finds itself at a critical juncture. The neo-colonial stranglehold continues to choke infrastructure and the emergence of an affluent middle class. Africa remains largely an exporter of raw materials and a consumer of finished goods. Per capita incomes remain low compared to many countries with which Africa was on a par at the time of independence. Time is running out to make the crucial decisions that will once again inspire hope in the future of our democratic governance. Let me share a few examples from my own country, Ghana. According to the latest Afrobarometer survey, an overwhelming 87% of Ghanaians believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. Additionally, 85% of Ghanaians rate the country's economy as bad, while 72% describe their personal living conditions from fairly bad to bad. Now, this is where it gets interesting. About 55% of Ghanaians say they have lost trust in our parliament. 53% have lost trust in the presidency. Moreover, 73% believe that government is not doing enough to fight corruption. And 64% feel that government is failing to improve the economy. Another revealing statistic is that 22% of Ghanaians agree that the country will be better off under military rule. These figures indicate a significant decline in trust in democratic governance in Ghana, which should serve as a wake-up call for all of us. While I'm not certain of the most recent statistics for Nigeria, given that our two countries are often called Siamese twins from the same mother, and we're always competing over football and jollof, our countries are so similar that I believe that the sentiments expressed in Ghana might be very similar to the sentiments that you have here. The African continent today is grappling with a range of complex issues that threaten to derail our progress. Recent geopolitical tensions have led to a cascade of economic challenges, including rising food and energy prices. At the same time, the looming threat of climate change casts a shadow over agricultural productivity and energy security. These challenges are further exacerbated by ongoing political instability, as seen in the recent coup d'etats in Burkina Faso, Guinea, Niger, and Mali. And these are clear reminders of the fragility of democratic governance in parts of our country. Our young people who are emerging from school are better educated than ever, and they have access to more information thanks to the digital age. However, many millennials, Gen Zs, and generations feel that African democracies are not working for them. It is crucial that we as leaders understand that challenges are not isolated. They are symptoms of deeper systematic issues rooted in the power dynamics of the contemporary international system. By Western democracies has created a paradigm of intense competition among key state actors, often perpetuating external dependencies and manipulations that disproportionately impact our continent. The paradox of our time is that some of the largest holders of natural and human resources, including many African countries like yours and mine, find themselves vulnerable and dependent in the era of globalization. The accompanying strictures and institutions of these power dynamics ensure that decision-making processes like the United Nations are dominated by a select few, often of the global south. Recent developments on the international stage underscore the instability and insecurity pervading the global system. These events point to institutional failures and the inability of powerful interests to act decisively when it matters most. The ripple effects of these global crises are felt acutely in Africa, intensifying existing challenges and giving the recent wave of political insurrections and coups in Africa, particularly in the Sahel region, and marginalization, the state fragility and within the ECOWAS sub-region, but also expose the limitation of current diplomats of Africa. What are the challenges that threaten Africa's future? And what role do you in our African economies? Challenges that have been starkly highlighted by vulnerabilities that long existed beneath the surface of our economic. Our continent's heavy reliance on exporting commodities and importing essential goods of colonial economic structures that we have yet to fully dismantle and economic sovereignty is. Firstly, the monoproduct nature of many African exports, which account for a major portion of its export earnings, is a vulnerability. Highly susceptible to global oil price fluctuations, as we have seen all too clearly in recent years, remains largely underdeveloped and underutilized within reserves and stifles the growth of domestic agri-business. Financing, food safety standards often lag behind global best practices, discouraging investment and innovation. And again, our manufacturing base is severely underdeveloped. The premature deindustrialization of Africa, driven by poorly designed structural adjustment programs and inequitable global trade practices, has resulted in our exclusion. Global manufacturing and value added remains below 2%. Our role as exporters of raw material. Fourthly, the informal sector, which accounts for a substantial portion of employment outside the formal legal and regulatory frameworks and growth, but also deprives government of the much needed tax revenue and also workers of essential legal protection. It goes without saying, systems remain undeveloped and are often inaccessible to. The lack of robust credit reporting systems, limited access to long-term capital, and high interest rates stifle entrepreneurship. As legal professionals, you have a crucial role to play in addressing these structural challenges, but to actively shape the legal frameworks that will support the diversification and strengthening of our economies. Area is not merely an economic agreement. It is the embodiment of the Pan-African vision championed by leaders like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The Continental Free Trade Area reflects this spirit, ushering in a new era of economic integration and opportunity that transcends the arbitrary borders imposed by colonial. It stands as a testament to our collective determination to carve our shape our own economic destiny. It's largely unrealized due to ongoing structural to the African Continental Free Trade Area. The lingering effects of colonial exploitation, the burden of global commodity markets continue to challenge, yet it is precisely in facing these challenges that you must step forward. And yesterday, our sister Ngozi asked, are you ready? The African Continental Free Trade Area offers an unprecedented opportunity to reshape the economic landscape of ensuring that this framework not only promotes trade, but also protects the rights of our workers and ensuring that they align with international labor standards and human rights conventions. It's not just an economic necessity, but a realization of the Pan-African dream. It is your duty as legal persons to advocate for and implement legal mechanisms that enable free movement of our people and goods across our borders, while addressing the legitimate security concerns associated with that. Tirelessly to harmonize our immigration laws, recognize professional qualifications across our member states, and establish robust systems for the mutual recognition of judgments and arbitral awards. For your profession, the implementation of the African Continental Area opens up new opportunities and responsibilities. You must proactively adapt your legal education and practice to meet the needs of an integrated African market. This involves developing expertise in international trade law, cross-border disputes, and comparative African. It also means establishing Pan-African law firms and legal networks that are capable of serving clients in various countries across the continent, and thereby fostering a truly African legal ecosystem. Moreover, you must lead in developing a body of African commercial law that reflects our values and our realities. And this includes drafting model laws for e-commerce, intellectual property protection, and competition. And all these must be tailored to our own African context. You should also advocate for the creation of an African commercial court to resolve disputes arising from the African Continental Free Trade Area and ensuring that African jurisprudence plays a central role in interpreting and applying agreements. As we navigate this new landscape, we must remain vigilant in addressing potential challenges. The benefits of economic integration should not be limited to large corporations or only the political elite. We must develop and enforce competition laws that prevent monopolistic practices and ensure that small and medium enterprises can also thrive in this expanded market. Additionally, environmental protection must be an integral part of our trade policies, ensuring that our pursuit of prosperity of our natural heritage. In the spirit of Nkrumah's vision, let us view the African Continental Free Trade Area not as an end in itself, but as a stepping stone towards greater political and economic unity. As legal New Africa, crafting laws and institutions that bring our. You should also work to revive and modernize the concept of African customary law, creating a distinct African legal identity that honors our diverse traditions while addressing the needs of a modern, integrated economy. But so too is your capacity to meet it. Let us take inspiration from the words of another great Pan-Africanist, Julius Nyerere, who said, "Without unity, there is no future for Africa." As we move forward with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, let us do so with an unwavering commitment to unity, justice, and prosperity, on which the structure of African economic integration, ensuring that the dreams of our founding fathers are not just aspirations. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change poses an existential threat to our agricultural sector and our energy security. As guardians of the law, you must take the lead in developing and implementing agricultural practice and incentivize investments in renewable energy. You must draft legislation that balances economic development with environmental sustainability, ensuring that the Africa of tomorrow is not constructed at the expense of our natural heritage. The specter of political instability continues to cast a dark shadow over our continent. The recent wave of coup d'etats in West Africa is still a stark reminder of the fragility of our democracies. Even more concerning is the rise of people with the democratic process. As legal professionals, you have a solemn duty to strengthen the pillars of democracy, the rule of law, the separation of powers, and the protection of fundamental human rights. Our electoral processes and accountability mechanisms that enhance the credibility of our democratic institutions and restore trust in the social contract between the governed and their leaders. And yesterday, our sister spoke a lot about the social contract. Distinguished members of the Nigerian Bar, let us now turn our attention to a matter of paramount importance: the youth of Africa. This demographic represents both our greatest challenge and our most promising asset. A quality, urgent attention, and coordinated action. The employment across our continent are not just statistics to be discussed in academic discourse or political rhetoric. They are a ticking time bomb of social unrest. The role extends beyond the courtroom and the board. We must become architects of a future that fully harnesses the boundless potential. The current educational system, a remnant of our colonial past, is utterly seize the opportunities of the modern world. You must push for a comprehensive curriculum overhaul that emphasizes digital literacy and practical, technical, and vocational skills as legal education initiatives that bridge the gap between academic theory and professional practice. Establishing a robust legal framework that fosters entrepreneurship amongst our youth. Business registration processes, provides tax incentives for young entrepreneurs, and improves access. In this context, I propose the creation of a youth entrepreneurship legal clinic. This initiative would offer business formation and business operations. By lowering legal barriers to entry, we can unleash a surge of innovation and job creation driven by young people. Furthermore, you must ensure that our labor laws evolve to protect the rights and interests of young workers in an increasingly dynamic and digital economy. The rise of the gigabit economy and remote work presents both opportunities and challenges for our youth. You should advocate for legislation that provides social protection for freelancers, ensure fair competition, fair compensation, and prevention of this class of people. This may involve pushing for amendment to all categories of workers. The brain drain that depletes our continent of its brightest minds. While we cannot halt the forces of, and this means advocating for policies that improve the ease of doing business, infrastructure, and foster a more meritocratic society. Transparency and accountability in governance, thereby cultivating an environment where talent. We must recognize that youth issues intersect with other social challenges. For instance, climate change disproportionately impacts our youth, who will bear the brunt of our environmental decisions. You should therefore promote environmental laws and advocate for sustainable development practices, a livable future for generations yet to come. Moreover, it's essential to address the gender disparities that persist in youth employment and entrepreneurship. Young women face unique barriers to entering and succeeding in the workforce. You must champion policies that promote gender equality in education, in employment, and you must combat discrimination and support young women entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, the task before us is formidable, but it's not insurmountable. By harnessing the innovative spirit of our youth, demographic challenge into a demographic dividend. I urge you to commit yourselves to this cause with the same zeal and dedication that you bring to your legal practice. Member of the Nigerian Bar to take up this challenge. Establish a youth empowerment organization tasked with developing concrete policy proposals and initiatives to tackle youth unemployment and underemployment. Engage with legislators a national youth empowerment strategy that transcends political divides and electoral cycles. Unquote. It is your duty to critically examine and challenge the status quo. Every young person can realize their full potential. The future of our continent depends on our ability to youth into the driving force for progress and prosperity. By empowering our youth, we secure not just their future, but the future of Africa. Furthermore, we must recognize that the legal profession itself must evolve to meet the needs of a changing world. Our legal education produce lawyers who are not only technically proficient, but also deeply committed to social responsibility. A certain number of hours to providing free legal services. We must also strengthen our legal aid systems. As we move forward in rebuilding Africa, let us be guided by the rural communities and persons with disability. The recent leadership, in conclusion, and there's not going to be finally and lastly, this is in conclusion. Let us leave this conference with words, but with a renewed commitment to action. Let us pledge to use our legal expertise. The future of Africa rests in our hands. Let us move forward with determination. Let me say, I wrote this, I didn't know you had changed your national anthem. Back to the other one. Words of your national anthem, and I quote, "The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain." And so I sat here yesterday, and so I leaned over and I said, but this is not the Nigerian. It says, oh, we changed it back to the original recently. So sorry, I said your national anthem, that the Africa of tomorrow realizes the potential of its people and its resources. I thank you all very much for your attention for the rest of this conference. Thank you.